In my experience, even the best risk management processes and frameworks, even the best executed ones, at some point in time, they're going to break down. In other words, something is going to happen that wasn't part of the plan. In other words, we didn't have it identified. We didn't have controls in place for it. We didn't have any decisions made on it. Something slipped through the cracks, or what happens quite a bit today is something new has occurred. As a matter of fact, I was just reading an article today. They're now war driving kittens. They actually have devices you can put on a cat's collar and turn it into a war kitty to go out and detect your neighbor's Wi-Fi and start cracking Wi-Fi's. I just hadn't even thought about that. When that prevention and protection breaks down, an event can occur, and that's when we go into discovery and detect. So first of all, some definitions. What is it that we're detecting or discovering? And it's events. Now, an event is any change of state, and there's a lot of processes that we can have wrapped around this. So anything that changes something to the network, to the servers, to the devices, your laptops, your phones, it could be a change to the furniture. And I'm not kidding. It could be a change to the location of the furniture, could be an event. And I want you to keep that in mind for a couple of minutes. So these events can occur, and we have methods of logging and monitoring them. Now, they can be collected with specific triggers. And I want to just really bring this up. So many things on our network get logged, and it might be just normal status of operations, but an event is something that is, well, we want to try to log what is unusual. So to do this, we can create triggers for this. And this really reduces the amount of data that we're both collecting and that we have to analyze later when an event occurs. So real common things are things like CPU utilization or disk space utilization or network utilization. If you have an intrusion detection system, you could be looking at sources of malicious traffic. You want to have these triggers created so that you get warned of events that are unusual, that represent change. Now, a lot of this stuff is also identified through the change management process that's also built into the risk management process. But the idea is to try to eliminate that bulk of data. Keep in mind though, and a lot of us have been down this road, if you are relying only on specific triggers, you got to make sure you have the right triggers in place. It's not uncommon that somebody forgot to watch for something in particular that could become a problem later. Now, discovery and detect goes from these events to another phase, incidents. And here's what it is, and this is kind of a strange concept. Events may or may not be a problem. So whether you have triggers put in place or you have monitoring and analysis tools that are reading all of the log files that go through and something triggers in them, that event doesn't mean that it's a problem. But events that do pose a threat to the organization, to a device, to an application, to your data, to your availability, in other words, that whole CIA triad again, that's an incident. And so it could be something like a policy violation, like your acceptable use policy. There was a violation, somebody's using the wrong type of phone, or they have the wrong type of application on their laptop that could be subject to malware. So these kind of things that pose threats, and this could include any kind of normal, regular IT operations that can pose a threat, such as an outage could be part of this. So it's not just security that can be an incident. Now, incidents can be collections of events from different sources. And one of the things to keep in mind is that when you're working at monitoring events, you're not just monitoring one thing. And so it may be a collection of events from different sources that represent the threat. In other words, on their own, it may look, well, not a big deal. But as a collection, all of a sudden, it's showing you maybe the landscape of somebody hacking into your network. So here's where the tricky part of the definition is. Not all events are incidents, but all incidents are events. Does that kind of make sense? So it's kind of an important distinction. Like I said, you'll notice that people sometimes they'll get an event that will be triggered and they'll start to panic and they'll start to freak out. This is what the discovery phase is about is, well, we've got the event, but is it really a problem or not? So as I said, discovery occurs when your prevention and protection fails, and it'll be readily apparent because it's an event that has gone off that you've discovered, and now we have to start to take a look at it. Now, the detection and discovery, this can also be fully automated, and oftentimes it is, especially in larger size networks and environments. You will have automation systems, and we've talked about some of this in the past too, that will set up the triggers and generate the alarms for you. And a lot of these monitoring products can go further than that. So they can even execute specific sets of instructions when a particular trigger or alarm has gone off. An intrusion detection system can oftentimes detect a particular set of, well, what looks to be malicious traffic, and it can then automatically block that traffic from entering the network, as one example. Now, detection can also be a manual process, and that means scouring through logs. Maybe an event has occurred and you need to see if there's any other events that have occurred that are related to that. And one of the challenges to this is, just like I said earlier, you may have to do this from the perspective of what other systems may have those events. In other words, could be different sources. Now, there are a couple of ways that the discovery of an event could be manual, but assisted by others. It could be a customer ticket that's come in. Quite frankly, if I'm having problems with one of my customers' websites, the first person probably to notice that is somebody trying to use the website, and I'll get a notification of it through a customer ticket. This also happens internally with organizations with their help desk. Somebody calls up to help desk and a ticket gets generated by it. And that's really employee detection is one way to determine events. And let me give you an example of one that seems to elude a lot of people. If someone from your office that uses the same application every single day comes up to you and says, boy, the network seems slow, a lot of IT folks would have a tendency to kind of poo-poo them until they've run some tools to do some analysis. But that might be a very good indication, because if they're using the same application, they can detect a very subtle change in performance. Now, this might be performance on their particular machine, but that is an event. That might be something that'll lead you to the discovery of possibly malware on their system. So employee notification and detection is a great process. Now, once we've finally discovered that we have an event, now we need to go to the escalation phase.